What is this conversation doing to the Southern Baptist Convention?
I mean, it is definitely fracturing to some extent the Southern Baptist Convention. Now, and that's not necessarily bad. Sometimes you have to have fractures over truth. I think that's fair. I'm not against saying, hey, this is false. We can't teach this. But I think this is an area of sort of politics where, one, if you look at our statement of belief, we tend to emphasize theology. Actually, ironically, this is really interesting. Conservative evangelicals get the reputation of being intensely political. That's sort of the vibe out there in the culture. The data shows the opposite. There's a study by Ryan Burge, who's a Baptist professor of political science and a pastor, but he studied the data on who is more political. Conservative white evangelicals or black Protestants or Catholics or atheists or agnostics. What he's found is that across multiple measures of political activity, atheists and agnostics are far more political than conservative white evangelicals. And actually, George Yancey, who's a black evangelical sociologist, has studied the same issue within the Christian church, and he finds that conservative evangelicals versus progressive Christians, who are sort of more liberal theologically, conservative evangelicals are, again, far less political. And he actually explains why. He says in his book, I think it's called One Faith No More, that conservative evangelicals find unity in theology. And I say amen to that. Our primary allegiance is to the good news that Jesus saves bad people and to the message of the Bible, the message of God's salvation of man. That's where we find our unity. Ironically, progressive Christians downplay doctrine, but they play up our identity as political actors. So progressive Christian churches are much more politically active because that's where they find their source of meaning and identity and purpose in life. So, and I would say, is that where we want to head as the SBC? I am not at all against Christians being involved in politics. That's fine. I've wrote a book on how we can engage as Christians in politics. That said, that can't be the core of who we are. And that's always been the confession of every evangelical denomination in the U.S. It's primarily about what we believe about God and man and Jesus. And then politics can flow out of that, but it can't be primary and it shouldn't be how we sort of draw lines within our congregations.